Thank you all for being there today. I'm going to start with a short PowerPoint presentation because we had, oh, Werner. Hello, Werner. Werner, can you hear us? Just waiting to come. Yes, now you're connected. Can you hear us, Dana?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Hello, Werner.
Hi.
So the idea is that we had the European Commission on Zoom on Monday, and we finally got some answers. To make it easier, I'm going to make a short presentation on PowerPoint so that you can have an overview. So it's only 5 or 6 slides, but still I'm going to do them at once. And if you have questions, I will take them after, if you're fine with that. Okay? Okay, let's start. I don't know how to make it speak with me, so maybe I don't put anyone here. Basically, it will start with what the European Commission said to us, and then what are the eligible costs, then the question of postponing, and then what we ask for to the European Commission, what is the strategy for us, and then how we spend the budget. So what the European Commission said, there will be no added budget, which means that there will be no special fund for any cooperation project. Could you just unmute yourselves? Catherine? Hello?
Yeah, I will.
Thanks. So it means that basically what's happening is that the European Commission is only going to give half of the expenses, which is what the basic rule, which means that if we spend less, they will give less. Which also means that if we don't have much expenses, so that we have a balanced budget, the partners still are going to have to owe contributions. So that's the basic. I'm going to enter in details after. Some costs are remaining eligible. Among these costs, we have some travel costs. We also have some artistic fees, but I will go into details for the additional proofs just after. They also said that some actions can be replaced. I'll go into details about that, but we will probably need an amendment for that. And the question of postponing is possible in the frame of what is already existing in the guidelines. And it will also require an amendment. About the eligible costs. So regarding the travel costs, we will need a mail from the airline company mentioning the absence of reimbursement, so that we have a proof that it hasn't been paid by another source. Because some companies, they don't give back the money, they give coupons to be used later. For that, if we cannot use these coupons during the period of between now and the 31st of October, then we will need to write a letter specifying that these coupons could not be used during the period of ACT, but they can still be eligible in the budget. And for deductions, meaning if they give back some money but not the totality, then we will need the tickets where the condition of the deduction is written. For the artistic cost, it's a bit more complicated. What they say is that it's supposedly eligible, in their totality, meaning if there is a company that is that was supposed to come to your festival that is cancelled and you already have the contract that has been signed before the official decision to prohibit the gathering, and if in this contract the cancellation is kind of mentioned, then it means that all the amount of the artistic fee could be still eligible. The question of the signing before means that probably there could be if it's not okay. I mean, we could welcome contracts that have been signed before the beginning of the situation, and for the cancellation, the European Commission, they use the word of force majeure, but I think it's good that we discuss that, because in France the question of force majeure is not that useful for the companies, because most of the time in the French contracts the force majeure means that the company is not getting anything. So I will have to ask you what kind of mention you have in your contracts. And when I say it's not confirmed yet and it's supposedly eligible, it's because what they say in their official answer is not clear enough. So we asked for a clarification, and so far we don't have something written. Orally they said it's okay, it's going to be okay, but we don't know exactly how. Then for the new activities such as online residencies or conferences, what we will need is usual vouchers. For example, you have an online residency, you pay the artist with a contract making the residency, you use the usual vouchers to justify the costs. But it will have to be validated by the coordination team before, as the agency, they ask us to inform them about these changes. And if it goes above the 10% of changes in the total budget of In Situ, we will need to make an amendment. So that's why the coordination team will need to have a very clear overview of what is happening in the changes to validate that, because we will have to send them an email to tell them that this has changed. And then if we see that when we put all of these new activities together amongst the members, if it's above the 10%, we will have to make an amendment. The question of postponing the end of act was one of our first ideas, so that you could use it for next year. But it's a bad option, and we decided not to go through that. The first reason is it's not possible for Lieux Publics in terms of cash flow, because the last part of the funding is only arriving at the end of the project. So if we postpone the end of the project, it will mean that we will receive the money in 1 year. And it also means, I don't hope that, but if we don't have the Uncommon Spaces project, it means that there is no coordination team in October. So there will be no coordination team to deal with the activities in 1 year if we decide to postpone in 1 year. And the last thing is, as we mentioned last time, there is normally no possibility of overlapping between two large-scale cooperation projects. There is one possibility of postponing the end of act for 2 months, but if it should have, it's only, we think about that only if there is a need from the partners to be able to finish their budget in November or December. But then again, there is this question of overlapping between the two projects that is still not answered, and still this question of salaries. So we would like not to go there, if possible. What we asked to the European Commission, so far they said no, because they said there will not be more money. But we are working with Pierre on the question, on this new option that would be to ask them to give us the totality of the funding that they should have done, whatever the expenses. So basically it means that they will go up to the 50% rule, which could allow to cover the partners, the contribution less from the partners, and maybe even give some additional amounts that we could use for several, including salaries. There is another option that we are speaking about, which is not to go up to 1,940,000 euros, but just cover the remaining contribution of the partners, which would give no additional expenses, but at least would cover the partners' contributions. But these options are not very likely. And the feedback we have from the agency is that they will not deal with that, and that if we want to go further on these options, we have to go on lobbying directly to the Commission, which makes it even unlikely, but still we're going to work on that. So what is the in-situ strategy? The idea is not to lose the money the EU is supposed to give us. So basically to spend everything we are supposed to spend to get back all the funding from the European Commission. And to do that, we would do that so that we could support the artist as much as we can and not lose this money or this amount, so that this amount can go directly to the artists. Then, and this is where we have to be creative, is find new ways or creative ways of doing these expenses. And obviously the partner would still have to owe their contribution. And then we go into details on how to spend the budget. So, in terms of expenditures, there are many possibilities. The first one is to integrate into the budget part of previous mobilities that haven't been taken into the in-situ budget so far. Let's say some of you have a mobility with an artist from this year or last year, and given the budget we had, we said that only part of it would be integrated in the in-situ budget. Maybe we could take the totality of that so that it could help you to spend all the money. That's the first option. Another option is to do new type of projects. For example, the ones you mentioned last time, like online residencies or conference, podcast, text that could be asked to be written to artists, or collaboration between artists, or anything. We would discuss about that later on. That's the main reason of our discussion today. Then there is the mobility contract. So as you saw, the artistic fees are eligible on principle. So it means that depending on what is written on your mobility contracts with the artists, if it's possible, maybe you have an artist that wasn't able to come and will not play, then it means that the totality of the contract, if it's already signed, could be integrated in the budget. Again, it depends on what is written on the contract. If your contract says cancellation fees is only 20%, then it means that we will only be able to take into the in-situ budget 20%. And then we have the possibility of making co-productions, meaning instead of paying the mobility contract is to do co-production, meaning giving the money to artists for their next project. But this is kind of difficult because for us, as you know, the co-productions are a bit more complicated to justify because we would have to ask the artist to justify that they have spent the costs of co-production, which is kind of different of a mobility contract, like we did for all the pilot projects. Then there is a second option. I mean, all these options can be happening at the same time. The question of reallocation between partners. This is also why we will need, as quickly as possible, to have an overview of who is going to spend what, and also to know if some of the partners will be able to take more money, like we did for the 2 previous reallocations. Then there is, this is a very small amount, the question of expertise, but we don't have the answers from all of the partners on how and if they will use this amount, and if it's not used, we will have to decide to use it for something else. And basically that's it. I'm going to stop there so far, and now questions. Yes, Hugo. Sorry. Yes.
Yes, as we were uncertain on how it would evolve for our festival, we didn't sign any contracts in advance because there was a big problem. If we would sign the contracts already and we would have to cancel, which is now the case, then we would have a problem because we were not sure how it would be arranged. Now they ask only the signed contracts are eligible, which is quite a problem, because we had some things for sure. We were presenting Benjamin, we were presenting others, but the contracts are not signed officially. Of course, there is proof that they would have been playing if everything was okay, but there's no signed contract because we were waiting on how to handle this.
The only answer I can give you now is not an official one, but would be to antedate the contract.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is the only option we have so far.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Daniel.
So this is complicated. So we had legal advice about our contracts, and the legal advice is basically not around force majeure, but it is in fact that the contracts are null and void. So it's not about cancellation, it's not force majeure. It basically says the contracts don't exist, and therefore you don't have to pay the cancellation. And so we've negotiated different cancellation fees. We've made offers, but they're not governed by the contract because our legal position is the contract doesn't exist. So I don't know how we get around that.
And when you say you made propositions to artists for cancellation fees, is it you have to have a legal? Are you going to make a new contract?
No. So we've made it. We've basically said, and here is an offer of goodwill, and that's it. Full stop.
So you have, like, it's a mail basically.
We've written a letter.
A letter. I could ask to the commission if that could fit. Letter. Yes. I'm not seeing. Who I'm not seeing. Hi, Florent.
Hello. Hi, sorry I'm late. I hope I didn't miss something very important. Maybe I'll catch on.
No, that's fine. Who has a question? I don't see everyone at the same time in the same window, but yes, Hugo.
Are there many, with everybody is online now, are there many alternative way to make new projects? As I hear from online residency, what is that?
So it was maybe Mikey, you could re-explain?
In terms of the online residency, that was just a thought really about an ongoing project that we were making with Rara Waib, where they're working with local participants, but they're having to do that online anyway. And then there would have been a public event at the end. And so actually what's becoming interesting is the online relationship is almost like a project within itself.
Mhm.
They don't need to actually do, of course we would prefer the final work, but the way that the company are now collaborating with a local company, it's like an online residency. So it was just a question of whether that could be imagined as a residency. I think, though, in response to what you just asked, there are some other projects that I don't know if they would be eligible, but something that Linda is working on with Collider that we're also going to be involved in, hopefully, is a very good example of an online project. But that's an artist, that's a different project to Touring the Pig, but it's the same artist. So I have a question about that. Is it possible? Do we have are we able to work with new artists if you imagine new projects, or does it have to be with the same artists?
They don't say anything about that. So by default, I would say as much as we can, we help the artists that were supposed to come, but if it's not possible and we have to reinvent ourselves on how to spend the budget, as long as they are in situ artists, I wouldn't see any problem. So I have Jay, and then Hugo, and then Anne. And then
Linda.
Linda.
Hey everyone. I've been working on some different online formats too that we could all talk about, but is there a way, Nadia, that we can help each other with the expertise? So for example, if if one of the partners wanted me to talk to an artist to, in terms of, I don't know, meeting with them and doing the kinds of things that we might do with expertise if I was traveling, and then pay me to do that, but then I donate that money back to their organization as a way that we can get the money and they could spend it without actually spending it. Do you think we could help each other that way?
You mean you would give the expertise basically to an artist that you would help?
Or a partner, or both. So if Mikey and Linda hired me to work with Collider, I don't know, I'm making that up, and then that money I donated back to the Freedom Festival, then we're spending the money and they're getting the money, and it all makes sense. I'm just trying to think of ways that, because the expertise seems to be a question mark, it could be a way that we help each other. And I think it could be useful that if we talk to different artists, that's part of the point of the network anyway.
Yeah, the expertise was basically at first to be helpful for the network outside of the network. But we could think about many things. It would not be used as a, I mean, the vouchers will not be a donation because it's not working. But we would find other ways to use that. So I wouldn't see any problem on that. But we will probably need either, if it's not travel cost, at least, let's say, salaries or part of salaries. That could be like time for justify these costs. But I just remind you that the expertise is just a very small budget today, so that you have an idea. So the expertise is supposed to be 500 per partner for the whole 4 years, and so far the estimation we have on, like, the worst case scenario where all of you are not spending the money, it's 500,000 euros. So it's quite a lot. Hugo?
Two questions. One is, I already told it, I guess, but now it's becoming more and more official. It's not a rule, it's an advice, and it's a question from the umbrella organization in Flanders, OCO. It's an organization that lobbies and that advises government and so on. It's an umbrella organization. And what they ask is that we pay all the cancelled projects, presentations, at least 30% of the fee that was agreed on. No cost, but 30% is the minimum. Whatever happens, if it's postponed or cancelled finally, but they need the money now. So it's a kind of way of pay artists a small amount, but still 30, 40, 50, whatever you choose to do. With this kind of agreement, be eligible for the EU Commission. That if we would agree that, okay, all the cancellation, but we pay them anyway 30% or 40%, whatever, if it's postponed or if it's cancelled, but we pay them because the budget is there. We can spend it, but there's no return on it. There's no presentation.
Yeah.
Would they agree to that?
Yeah, it's what I was talking about on the artistic fees. Basically, even if you say, that's the information we have from the European Commission, and where I said that we don't have the exact precise thing from them, but still they say you could pay the entire costs, not only 30%,
okay.
And it would still be eligible.
Okay.
That's what they say. And they also said to us, because we asked them, we said, it means that most probably the statistics of in situ for the mobility in 2020, they will not exist in a way or not be, and they said it's okay.
Okay.
So.
And the second thing was, I was planning to do Marco Barotti, his project, but that will be around 20th of October. That will happen. Will it be too late? We could make an invoice earlier. Would that be good? A good idea to make invoices earlier than the real, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Also possible.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is that many projects are going to be postponed in September and October, which means that Rachel is going to have to deal with the invoices, many more invoices at the same time. So as early as we receive the invoices, the better it is. Anne, you had a question? I cannot activate you. Oh yeah.
We are thinking of having an online residency. I know you had a chat with Guillaume, Nadia.
Yeah.
So with Zineb and Donika. So I think this is, we're waiting for Zineb and Donika to just confirm it's artistically makes sense. But it could make sense and we could have this residency online. And then probably what we would have give in the travel cost, we could add it to the artistic fee, or we're going to see that. And a question I had is, we had a long Skype meeting with the Pop-Up Civilization project, so the Snowball project, now Pop-Up Civilization. And they are now, Matteo is developing at the same time, basically, sorry, I'm going to try to summarize. We financed a kind of workshop in Milan that was supposed to be a physical workshop to be to able Matteo to work with researchers, etc., on the project, to nourish the project for the next step in Sotteville. And he couldn't do it physically, of course, so he did it online. And it was a very, very successful thing, this online interactive participation with the audience. And he also invited some observator programmers from Italy, and he was very keen on that. So he said, I would like to maybe try to develop both a physical show, live show with Fabrice, etc., with the team of the Pop-Up Civilization, plus in parallel maybe this online version of the project. And both could be also complementary. It's not either you have the live one or the online one, but you can also have some connection and invite people to have the physical experience first and then the online, or inverse. So we are thinking with Guillaume that we could maybe accompany this project a bit more on the online version also. At the same time at the physical version, because we are still hoping to be able to welcome them in September for the European Heritage Journey. But we're not sure about that, of course, that it will be possible in September. So we would at least would like to engage a contract for the physical one in September, even if it's cancelled, and also develop the online version. My question is, because it could be a quite important amount on the budget, because we have planned residencies for scenography building, plus another physical residency, plus that could be cancelled, but still the amount is given to the artist. Plus, if we do that, it's a quite big project. Do we have any
maximum level?
Yeah, for one project.
From the European Commission, no, we don't have any. What they say is always be reasonable in a way. So what is reasonable depends on the size of the project, I would say. But here, notably on the online part, we would enter, Rachel, you stop me if I'm wrong, but we would enter in the category of kind of co-production, which I was speaking before, because it's new work in a way. So it means that maybe the best way to do it would be either to integrate into the mobility contract that you have, and then it's inside the mobility contract and we don't think about the details of how it's spent, or it's in a co-production contract. But if it's in a co-production contract, then meaning not linked to a mobility, we will have to justify all the costs of Matteo building the website, working on the project, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
And then could we have both a part of co-production on the online version, plus another, it would not be a mobility contract, but it would still be a diffusion contract, because if they can't travel in September, we would still try to propose the online version to our audience.
This is why in this sense, I mean, when it's not linked to a presentation and it's for the preparation of a new project, it's more logical that it's a co-production contract. But if you have a connection with an audience, I would say the easiest way would be to use a mobility contract anyway, so that you don't have so many justifying vouchers to give. You see what I mean? It's just a question of how we justify the costs towards the European Commission.
So the mobility contract is okay for an online live kind of project.
I mean, I say mobility contract because this is what we say in situ, but it's not called. It's a session. It's a contract where you ask an artist to present a project to an audience in a way. So yeah, it would work. I had Linda, and then after Siat and James.
Lower.
And Catherine.
Mute. Okay. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello. Ciao, everybody. So regarding what Anne was saying, I'm gonna do the online Matteo's project on the 26th. So I'm curious to know what happens.
26th
and I agree.
What?
Next 26th of April.
Okay.
April 26th. Yeah. Next week. I also agree with Jay about expertise. I know it's a very little part of the budget, but we can also I think we can freely decide how to use it, to move it probably. I mean, so help us to understand how to use it in a different way. Regarding what Mikey was saying, and the possibility of new digital projects, let's say, or remote control projects, I want to share with you this project by Seth Honor, by Collider. I try to share my screen. I don't know whether it's possible. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the project that he sent me. I feel is very interesting. It has a double version. This is the version now, the response to the COVID situation. So the idea is that there is a robot, there is a web page where public and audience can go and they can capture their selfies, and then their drawings are going to be done within the empty venues, our empty venues. I'm working with a venue in Milano, so the empty venue that you can see rendering on the page is going to be filled up with faces of people that are sending their selfies through the web page. So there will be these little robots going on alone in this empty space, and there will be webcams to record what is happening and live streaming it. Yeah, so the people from all over the world, they can send their selfies in terms also of solidarity with what happened in Milano and the north region of Italy, and we can live stream it. They can use different kinds of plotter. They've already tried it. They bought a little robot and they're trying it at Exeter. So they're trying to find also the right way to reproduce the face. The other, I don't know, to go back to the normal view.
Do you want to stop the screen share?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Okay. So there's another version, which is a version I share with you very briefly, which is the actual production proposal for the after COVID, which could go together with the phase 2 proposal, which is the public art piece. So they will make a number of plotters, vertical plotters, to write outdoor on a 3 meters per 10 square meters building, where the public can watch themselves drawn. So people can go there, make a selfie, and then see themselves drawn on the wall. So there are these 2 levels, which are, in my opinion, very interesting to put together. One on an indoor project, but linked with this specific period, and the other one which resembles very much our network with an outdoor and public art project. Please, Nadia.
Yeah.
Again. So I don't know, I'm working on it. If you want to jump on it, we can share like another Zoom call on this project. The first phase is very cheap because actually Seth wants to try it, so he's not gonna ask much money on the fee, but it's more in terms of production. We have to find to buy the robots and to buy the webcams. So it's really costs of production. But if you want, I'm also trying to present it for the European Cultural Foundation call grant that is called Culture of Solidarity. So this idea of bridging places thanks to an artistic project. So if you want to jump on this as well, you're welcome.
Cool. Thanks.
I guess Nadia, this can be eligible.
Yeah.
Could you send it to us, Linda? Like
yes,
the document? Yeah, great.
Yeah, can.
Okay, so Siad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was, of course, we're also looking a bit to the edges, how to spend the money. And residencies, I think we will cope. As mobility, it's more a problem because you actually have to perform. So now I was thinking in this way to make a deal with another festival, which is in after September, because now there are no festivals allowed in the Netherlands till the 1st of September. And we'll give them our mobility budget. But then we as URO are going to present the work at their festival. So I will have it spent, and it actually also has been done in 2020. And then of course I make the deal that they present something at our festival in 21 for the same amount. But we don't have to tell Creative Europe that. But that would be inside like what is allowed to do it like that.
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, as a partner, you can in a way choose the place as long as it's around your space or around your area. You can choose the place where you want to organize your event. That's the first thing. It doesn't have to be in URO, in Terschelling. The second thing is that as long as you are paying for that, in a way, and that you as URO are able to justify the vouchers, proving that you paid the companies to go play in the other festival, I would say yes, it's fine.
Yeah. But then there's a what if. I mean, like, what if they're going to extend that also in September and October festivals are not allowed? I mean, like, you know, then I really don't know how to come to spending all of the money.
Then I would say we enter in the category of mobility artistic fees that are cancelled, and depending on what's signed in your contract, it could still be eligible even if it's cancelled. As I was speaking with Hugo earlier, these contracts are supposed to be eligible.
Yeah, but we did the same as, I mean, we have no contracts because we didn't make them because we saw this was happening. But okay, but we can look at that then if we look like for September, October, we have time to do that.
And you still have time to do the contracts as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just remind you all that as you probably remember, we have agreed on the fact that mobility and residencies are quite splurged now. So if you want to use all the money for mobility, that's possible as well. I mean, both are possible.
Okay.
And then we had James, and after Catherine. James? Yep.
Yeah. First question, there has been a clear delineation between pilot mobility and non-pilot mobility. Is that something that can be blurred as well? Does it really matter if it's a pilot project or a non-pilot project, as long as we can show that we've paid the money?
I would say no, because it's also not the same kind of return. As you probably know. So
well, it's a couple percentage different. But it's just trying to find out where the flexibility lies to ensure that the money is spent.
We haven't spoken about that. I think it's a decision we should take in decision with the steering committee rather than, I mean.
Yeah. Okay. So but we don't need to use a lot of time now.
Yeah.
The second question is actually a clarification. When you were saying unused mobility, does that mean, for example, if we have an excess of costs from 2019, that we could apply them in 2020 instead? Or is everything locked within the calendar year?
I would say yes, but I would have to be sure with Rachel that it's a yes.
Because that might be a way, if people have leftover expenses from the year before, you don't have to even spend new money.
Yeah.
You've already spent it, and eventually it can count. So that might be a creative solution. One thing.
Rachel is here, so maybe.
Yeah. Just I want to say that, James, you had some invoices in, I think it was for Bistaki in 2019. So maybe we can, work on that to see if we can, use it for 2020. This is possible.
And for us, I don't think that will be as necessary because we've actually spent the vast majority of our contribution in the first years, but that might be a solution that we could absorb someone else's unpaid monies without them having to pay out cash if we can use additional expenses from last year. So I'm just trying to think through what I see as maybe possibilities, as long as they could be valid. Another thing that, for what it's worth, just as a quick example, for In Search of Democracy 3.0, we don't know if we'll be able to do the performances. They were originally August. That can't happen. We're considering maybe in October, but one issue is the possibility of having public gatherings. The other issue that at least we're facing is the quarantine issues with travel into Norway from countries outside of the Nordic region. So that at present, there's a 14-day quarantine. And what I'm curious about, and I don't really know yet, but for all international travel, if they get tests that can be implemented more quickly, then they can reduce the potential quarantine time. The question is how quickly and effectively will that kind of testing be available? But we already had a different, an extension of the project where we were incorporating an earlier project of Lucas's called Sketch. So we were making a custom version of that to ask people in our local community what they want with this huge redevelopment area in the town. And sketch artists would sketch what their visions for the town were. And the idea was to do that in advance of the performances. So when the performance comes, you have a very local questions of democracy, because there's a big issue. Who decides over all of this redevelopment? The local people or other moneyed interests, nationally, private, otherwise? And we couldn't do the residency as planned for him to come and train people, but we'll do the training online, but all of the illustrators are already local. So our plan now is, and they designed a custom sort of installation that we're building to mount all the drawings. So that we're still planning to implement, even if it has to be by invitation to limit how many people at a time and maybe extend it. So that's a way. I don't know if other projects that you guys have, there might be other ways that local artists can implement some aspects of a project, and then the training can be either some kind of residency or something. So that's just to throw out creative solutions. And then with Alexandros, we're making a podcast of his walk. And he will probably come, and if necessary, we'll bring him early, and he'll just have to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. But then a question about the expertise. Normally that was supposed to be, we were supposed to spend that on our travel and accommodation. Can we spend it on somebody else as a fee instead? Or how, or if we participate in a webinar for FIAD, can I claim my own salary as an expense since it's going into something else? I mean, how?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say yes, because what I'm trying to do is to try to, even if we have to find creative ways of spending the money, is to still keep the logic of the framework of the activities we had. So just saying the expertise was supposed to be used by the network to go outside of the network and speak about in situ and explain the work we do. I mean, a participation in a FAIR seminar is completely entering in that. So either we justify, if we justify salaries or instead of travel costs, for me it's okay, because it's still in the same spirit of what we wanted to do.
Okay, then we'll just need to maybe find out if Vilde and Rachel can find out how we document that.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, those are my thoughts and questions, I think, so.
Thanks, James. Now I have Catherine, and after Werner, and after Hugo. Catherine, where are you? Here.
Yeah, we are working very much on alternative solutions. Locally, we start here in Copenhagen on next Friday, a project where we invited 100 artists from different disciplines to do a walk, each artist alone, a 12-hour walk through the city. And we'll do this for 100 days. Now, we had been thinking for in situ, we have this whole pool of artists. And after our last meeting, I really felt it's a disaster, this whole situation, especially for the artists. And then I thought, then we had been thinking, I say we because Trevor is very much behind his thoughts. If we ask, if each of us asks, I don't know, 3, 5 in situ artists in our countries to do secret performances, secret places in the city or at home or whatever is now permitted. And then we of course, they of course film themselves and we live stream these performances. And in that way, we would get like a diary or an artistic archive of Corona times in Europe. And it would be a way also to spend our money, which would go to these artists. Just for an example, when we ask artists here to do a 12-hour walk, which they also have to prepare, of course, and where we ask them to give a sign of life each hour, which can be something very simple. It's not a performance, but just something. We give them 1,000 euros in fee for this. So, you know, it's, yeah. There was an input there.
Good, good. Hugo? Or Werner first, sorry. Werner.
Well, I just wanted to share a little bit with you what we have decided to do, because, you know, La Strada would be in the middle of the summer, in the end of July to the beginning of August. And for a while we were thinking maybe it's possible to do it in that time, but as we see now, also the Austrian government has closed the whole summer for big festivals, for gatherings outdoors. And so what I already thought this will be happening since a few weeks. And so what I thought is about is how to keep connected with the artists. And so what we decided to do is to expone our whole festival time for the rest of the year. So the situation is that we have the luck that this year there is I show you a little thing behind me. This is the installation of Joanne Layton, the Graz Vigil, and we do that since the 1st of January until the 31st of December. So every morning and every evening there is a vigil in this in this installation, and this is kind of really a luck for us, because this keeps us together, connected to the city and to the citizens, to the people. And there are 732 people every day, every morning. And in the moment, it's possible to do it because it's only 2 people who meet. For the really hard time, we close it and we ask the people to do it from their homes. So they were standing on their windows and did this watching hour for 1 hour there. They were guided by their guides on the phone. But now, since this last week, we started again to go to the mountain, and it's possible to do it again. And what we do now is that we try to put some festival together. We know already some dates when we want to do projects, and we will do in the summertime, in the same time of the festival, we will have a lot of community work in the internet, with a lot of connections, with interviews of artists, with interviews with artists in all of Europe. And we will change some program to the next year, but we will create new projects for this year. And we will start step by step and grow slowly together and to connect again with the people. There is 12 community projects this year in the program, and if you have a look at the German version of our festival site, you will see what our program was about and what is the ingredients for the rest of the year for us to work with. So this was our solution, and so we hope that we can keep the most of our budget. We hope that we talk to our sponsors, but there is a good basic situation for us that we can continue with this way of working. And what I wanted to say, we will try to get in contact with as much as we can with in situ artists, also to be part of it. We already have contacted Matteo. We will join this project on. So today I had a conversation with him, and we also are interested to work with artists who wasn't invited to this year's program, but we will invite them to talk with us and also to do some work inside of the La Strada this year. So maybe that's what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Anna. Hugo?
It was just a small tip for James. If he wants to get rid of the 14 days of quarantine, he should watch out for the Belgian dogs who are now trained to recognize COVID-19 by smell. So they can recognize people without symptoms immediately. We're not there yet.
Okay, so yeah, Fanny.
Yeah, so I also wanted to update what we are doing, because what I said the last time, that this is the first time for 8 years that we have some funds, not much, but still some funds. So it would be really a shame not to use that. So there are actually 3 projects we work on in different formats. One of them is the Daniel Mackays project, who tried to turn the whole apocalypse training to like a phone-based game, and like a storytelling game, but also that how to release the stress from the people. And also I think it is very important that it's based on phone and not online, because I think that everybody is just really fed up with the online communication and all this, everything is just through Zoom and Skype and everything. So it's like more a traditional way of communicating, like by phone. So they are still working on it, that how they can work without, I mean, in this virtual world, even if it's not online. And they want to apply for the ECF grant. I think that there will be like 10,000 of applications for sure.
Yeah, probably.
And but also we want to help them, and also we talk a lot about that. If there is a project which is we start developing in the digital sphere, on this virtual sphere, how we can just transform it to the physical sphere as soon as it's possible, or if it's possible. We are still planning to organize a festival in September, but in a different form. So we just prioritize those kind of projects where there is not much physical contact, but we'll see. So we don't know if we can have it or not, but usually because of the financial difficulties, every year we start organizing the festival very late. We are kind of got used to it, that how to organize something quickly. So for us, it's not a big difference between the earlier years or now. And there's another project which we started last year when we had this 1-year collaboration project with Ural and Citron Jean and Activate. And then we started working with Collective Walden to invite Wind Stillhaven to Budapest. But also there was this idea to redesign the set of this performance, because yeah, it's not too useful on one hand, and on the other hand, it's I think it's in a very bad condition. So we started working with university students at the University of Architecture and Engineering in Budapest, and they actually have a course. So they started a course in February, which is built on this, that how to plan this design, and then hopefully they can also realize it, but it also needs the opportunity to meet, because just building it, we need the physical space to have. So, but still, we can work on the plans. So we already had a meeting with the students where this group of students of eight were together, and they presented their projects, and they will present it tomorrow, the next step. Also, the third project is actually Thor McIntyre Burney. He just approached me and Florent to work on speakers in the digital sphere, and again to apply for the ECF grant. So what we will do, and in this case, his concept, or the concept he proposed to us, was that starting from the edge of EU, so from Britain with the Brexit, and Hungary where Orban is doing these terrible things, and also Kosovo. So then just start from the edges of Europe and talk about it, how the present situation, we have this very serious threat of nationalism in our countries. And then, but what we can learn from the pandemic situation should be empathy, but then all these nationalistic agendas and works are running against this. So somehow to try find the content around this, but at the same time to commission artists to work with us, the local artists, because now in Hungary, the independent art scene is absolutely without any help. So the ministry stopped the applications. So again, they are just doing something completely different what is happening in Europe, because in Europe, there's a lot of applications. There's so many applications you can apply, but what the Hungarian government did, that they stopped all the applications. So there's no application now, or grant applications which the artists could apply. They don't have income, so they are really in a very vulnerable situation. So with this project, when we talked to Thor, so it was very important to how to involve as many artists as we can and just generate some income for them. And also, like maybe Florent can add with this upskilling opportunity that we also talked about, that how to also use the speakers, or this new version of speakers, how to use it for upskilling some of our colleagues who would need it to have somehow cope with this situation. And also we talked about the 3 different levels of the presentation of the speakers. And first of them would be in absolute digital space, that how to create a digital space where we can just walk among the digital speakers. The second one would be a GPS triggered walk with phones. So when people already hopefully can go to public space, but not gathering. So when they want to avoid mobs, a lot of people together. And then the third steps could be a real physical sound installation. So how to open this digital space to more and more to the physical. So I mean, these are these three projects, and just to also answering Katherine's idea of this screening and filming and archive and so on, that's again when I talk a lot with Hungarian artists, that they would need any income. So even because that's a problem, that I think that very few people just watch actually these online projects. Yeah, that's, I mean, at least in Hungary, it's not really, but they need some income. And also we were talking about that just to film or record the not that much the secret performances, but the process of working. But yeah, and also just to prove that that how much work they do even in this situation when there is this lockdown. But for that, yeah, I mean, they have to be paid. And again, now in Hungary, which is really a problem, that even though we have this grant, it's about presenting. So it's very, very difficult if we don't present something that just for the process, I just can't justify it for the funders. It's not eligible cost if there is no presenting, even though it's not possible to present. So yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to share.
Cool. I'm quite happy in a way that from the last meeting we had, where we were thinking about things, and now we can see that from all of you guys and from the artists as well, we have some new ideas, and it's not just a question about how to spend the money, it's rather how to reinvent ourselves. So I think it's going to be very creative months to follow. Yes, Case? Up?
Yeah. Yes. Just in addition also to Fanny, but also to all of us, I think the big artistic challenge is how to combine these online ideas to the real the physical urban space or the physical landscape. And that's what we are breaking our head on this moment. This is what we want to do in the period of Ural. We are trying to create a new kind of we don't know how it will look like, but we want to be there online, but to try to make a connection with the real world, and to challenge the artists to find these ways. I can just give one short example. There's one sound artist, a couple of sound artists who really want to use the period now because the sounds are so different because it's much more quiet. So they want to put microphones on several spots to zoom in on very special common sounds, which are to be heard now because normally there's too much noise around it. And to make you listen to, for instance, a river streaming or something, very small things in nature, or it doesn't have to be only nature, but which you can hear inside. So, but you feel it has to have another layer to make it like connecting with the real world and the virtual world. So I think that's an interesting challenge.
Yes, I think that's the main challenge, how to still keep undigital in a space where we only have the digital available. Marine and then Neil.
Yeah, just to talk about also a project that is evolving because of the situation. We had planned to send Action Hero as a residency in Kosovo, knowing that Action Hero are British and their piece is called Oh Europa, and basically they travel Europe with their van collecting love songs from different parts of Europe and then broadcast. I mean, then there's one action which is really working with the residents and that collaboration, very human touched thing that is super beautiful, and then to create a radio show for 24 hours broadcast stream of love songs from all over Europe. So in a way, the point was to send them as a residence in Kosovo, to be also in that part of Europe and to work with Florent. Well, but of course, the idea of traveling across all continental Europe with a van from England to there might not be possible. It's not yet forbidden, but let's be just voilà. But so now we need to think of not to shut that door, but to think how we can still collaborate, and whether it's not a physical presence, but whether they continue to record songs from a community, Kosovar community in England, that then will be recorded in England but sent to Florent and to Pristina and broadcasted there, or whether we imagine a broadcast of love songs that are really, we plan to broadcast things together between Rennes and Pristina. And in that case, we have a connection through that radio show, which is also about love songs, which is kind of beautiful. But also there's maybe another alternative, which is for them to think about recording new songs that are not so much, right, that are love songs, but also love songs sung to someone. So that idea of correspondence and singing, recording song here, but sending them to someone as a letter, as a message, and use that as a framework of connecting people with each other, but also then outreaching people without moving. Well, we don't know yet. This is kind of all, it's been a big shuffle from the original project to think of new options, but in a way, I just think this is also a project that could make sense across the All In Situ network if we at some point agree within each other to broadcast that at the same time, or to communicate on it at the same time. So we have we all tune in, listening to love letters for 24 hours across Europe together, with the audience, our audiences. And also thinking of that question of correspondence between countries and sending love letters to each other without knowing each other, or to dear ones that we can't see because they are in another country. Or, well, it's just starting points of brainstorm at the moment, but just to let you know that, because we'll come back to it in a month when we'll have a clearer idea what is the future, in a way. So between Florent and Action Hero and us, we'll talk in a month. But so the project is not written yet, but there is that sense of just to another another example of how we can reconnect and maybe still make work that makes sense and not just opportunity, not to fill gaps.
Yes, thanks. Yeah. Sorry, just a second, we cannot hear you. I have to activate you, but yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Lovely. So it's fantastic to see you all, and I was obviously hoping to see you in Brussels when I was going to formally announce that UZ has finished. We closed the company at the end of March as a consequence of losing our funding from Creative Scotland, who are the Arts Council of England, of Scotland rather. So on April Fool's Day, it was the start of a new career, which is very, very appropriate. As I said, it had nothing to do with the COVID crisis. It was completely to do with politics within Scotland. I was really pleased that the last project was at Kelburn at the Atelier, and we had a fantastically rewarding time, and there will be a future for those artists in Kelburn. I think we were really inspired by them, and I know that David Kelburn, who's my partner in the festival there, is keen to invite them back. I'm continuing to work with Kelburn as a curator of their art and public space. And I'm also doing some other work, and I have a project which I want to tell you all about at some point quite soon. But because I will be continuing in the network through Sur Madura, which is an associate partner. And I will, of course, very much encourage you to think about sending artists there once people are able to travel again. I came back from Sri Lanka at the end of March, and we just completed the new residency whilst I was there, and it is fabulous. It's a very beautiful space. So that's really where we've got to. I'm very pleased that the Snowball Effect is continuing with a different name, and I'm really very happy that Anne has put so much into it, and that Werner and Linda and hopefully others will see it in its new manifestation. So that's a small legacy, which I'm really pleased about. And I hope to see you all again and to remain in contact.
Thanks, Neil. Thank you. We're going to stay in contact, of course. I have, yes, Mikey, and then after I'll make a summary.
So I just wanted to quickly just say, and there's one question in this as well, but this new way of working, this online, this one thing we're discovering is there might be something interesting here for the long term. For example, we're making what was a sound installation in public space. It's going to be filmed in 360 film. So in the future, people can access the experience with binaural sound, the whole 360 sound, but you can wear a headset. So you'd be at home wearing a headset. And what is beginning to make us talk about is, in the future, what we might be doing now during this crisis is creating work for people who aren't able to access public space. Maybe because of disabilities, maybe because of issues that they can't. So in the future, maybe what we're doing is also creating artwork that people who can't come to our events will be able to use in the future. So I just wanted to say there's something interesting to think about in the long term. And just a question, Nadia, about as we reimagine these projects, which have, as everybody said, is really exciting, lots of great ideas. It seems to me that I'm more likely to be working with a UK artist in partnership with Linda, for example. So the question of whether I can work with an artist from my country, is that going to be the same? Are we able to adapt that rule slightly?
That's a good question. So, I mean, the principle, if I'm staying very European Commission driven, as long as there is no transnational mobility, and they transform the transnational mobility in a virtual transnational mobility, it should stay the same rule. But we already have a rule, which is the in-situ artists. So you have to work with an in-situ artist. So I would say, as long as there is a collaboration between two countries, I mean, you don't move. So as long as there is a collaboration between two countries, we should be fine. So it's a UK artist who's going to work with an Italian partner. So if there is a co-production in that, let's say it's an in-situ co-production, then it means that how Freedom could be part of the co-production in a sense. But I'm saying that's my point of view. It's not the feedback from the European Commission. So I would not be able to tell you exactly, but I would say it stays in the frame of, again, what we thought we were going to do, which is make artists from different countries work together with partners from other people, other places, and meet audiences from other places. So I would say yes.
So perhaps with that example, it would be better to call that a co-production rather than a mobility project.
Yeah, it would be more logical, I think. Okay. If the presentation, but after again, if the presentation is happening where? So if it's happening in Italy, then for Linda it's fine. If it's happening in Hull, you know, it's not even an online mobility, because it's just an artist from UK working in Hull. You see what I mean?
Yeah, but maybe it's quite a good example of a project. No matter, we don't want to go on about this particular.
No, but it's interesting.
It's a good example because actually the point of the project was to be happening in multiple countries at the same time.
So then I would say, if we keep the rule, I would say that it's a bit like the snowball effect. So you have several artists from several countries that have been working and presenting the work in different countries, and we have decided that as there are many artists from different countries working for the same project, in any case, wherever it goes, it will be a mobility. So in a way, I could say the same. If it's presented in many countries because it's an online result. Daniel, you're leaving, or you're just asking for a question? Everybody is doing that. I don't know. I'm not following. Anyway.
It's to Neil. He's leaving.
Oh, okay. Bye-bye, Neil. See you soon.
Yes.
Sorry.
So just to close that circle, sorry to go on about it. I'm just going to post another thing on the chat about robot selfie so you can understand it better. It's not a live web page, but this is the example of the web page of how it could work. So if you imagine, you could also select which country you want to send your selfie to.
Okay.
So
It's
everyone
just,
can see that.
the only thing I want to avoid would be that our network transforms itself in a one-to-one organizer artists from the same country working together individually. If we do that, I mean, we do, all of you are doing this by yourselves. So there is no need for In Situ to do that. So the point of being together and making a cooperation has to be, in a way, a collaboration between artists or partners from different countries. That's all we care about in a way. So yeah. Okay. Marketa, how are you? We didn't hear you yet.
Fine. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, we are at the stage that we are waiting because we are the furthest festival in a row. So we should start on the 9th of October. But so far it seems like the border stays closed. So our focus at the moment is to support the Czech artists and the Czech art scene because they are absolutely out of money at the moment. Because if you don't have any chômage here, so if you don't work, then you don't get paid, and there's no way how to get any money. So we really want to support as many Czech bloggers, as many Czech artists and groups in the way of the performances, if it's possible, or the residencies, or the work in progress, which might, happen that they will perform in 2021. We will see, because we have a very nice building, which is the old spa in the Prague Street, just next to the Pones Theater, which we just saw the pictures and the plans, but haven't been able to step in because of everything's closed. And we will see. We have just, it's just we know that we haven't cancelled anything so far, because we have still possibility that we will be able to do something, but we don't know in which way actually, and how many people we would be able to let in, because so far it's 2.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So I'm going to make a short summary. So regarding how we're going to spend the money and how we're going to have changes in rules. Regarding the contracts for mobility contracts, I would say for the people who already have a cancellation, if you could, because it has been asked by the agency, if you could send us models of your contracts so that I can have a look on the cancellation. And for example, Daniel, it could be good also that I have a model of the letter of offer of goodwill and the contract, so that we can see exactly, because you don't have the same. So depending on the country and so on, same Hugo, could be interesting to have I mean, you don't have the contract for this year, but maybe the one from last year, depending on, you just send me what you have. It could be useful. For the expertise, we will go back to you. At least we know that for seminars like the one of the Institute talk during the MOOC, it's okay, but we will go back to you for precisions of what has to be justified and how. Same for pilot mobility and mobility. I'll go back to you on that. We have to work with Rachel before I can give you an answer on that. And same, but I think it's going to happen individually for the people who can justify things from the years before. because depending on the legislation in each country, it could not be possible depending on how it works in terms of financial decisions. So we will see that individually. I think we're going to list also all the things that like the initiatives or artists and so on the cloud, where we will put the video so that you can also add things. And for example, Linda, we will add the document you showed us on Kaleido and so on and so forth. Just some little things as well. So, you know, Anna Rispoli is working on an online crash test, let's say, first test in French this Friday with 12 people. She decided to keep the date where she was supposed to be with us in Brussels because it was supposed to be tomorrow. And then we will probably, some of us are going to attend. It's in French, but we will have some feedbacks as well. So at least have a first overview. The project has also a bit changed with the situation. So she has incorporated some stuff. So I cannot say much more, but probably will next week. Also about Collective Walden, Thomas Lammers, he was supposed to make a speech during the conference, and we decided to ask him to write a text about the artists and the situation and how it goes. But we also decided that we will not ask him to write that now because it's too early, and we wanted to let him the time, give him the time to think and be give a proper answer, at least point of view. I just wanted also to mention we discussed last time about the Journal of Public Space. As you remember, I finally had the chance to speak with Luisa Bravo, and there are actually more researchers than organizers, but they still have, I mean, they're very connected with many universities in Europe, but also in Australia, in Melbourne. And they are coming, most of them from architecture, but also from arts department in universities. And some of them are having connections with art organization. But what they are going to do now is that they are going to launch a series of webinars speaking about the absence of public space for 1 year. And there will be 3 themes. The first seminar is happening in the 7th of May. It's very general. The general rule of public space in a time of pandemic. The 14th of May is about innovative approaches and creative practices. And the last one is on health disparities, the 21st of May. And just so you know, she's kind of very open to a collaboration with In Situ. She even went to speak about the possibility that the second seminar would be organized in collaboration with In Situ, because it's speaking about more art than the other ones. So I said to her that I would go back to you partners to see if you were interested. At least the least collaboration could be that some of you are going to just attend. Another possibility is that some of you are going to be panelists. And another possibility is that we really work on the organization of something with them, but I would think it's a bit, the last option is a bit too early since we don't know them at all, and so I would prefer that first we begin a small and light collaboration. But still, I think it's interesting to connect with researchers that are in a way speaking about public space, and it makes sense. Yes, and just to finish, and after, if you have comments, go ahead. I think we'll keep the artistic Zoom maybe next week for the people who want to speak about artistic project we spoke about today very quickly. So maybe we keep the meeting next week. I just remind you that some evaluation 2019 are not received yet. Please. And you obviously all have noted the date of the conference, that is October, beginning of October. So conference 2nd of October, and the 2 days before, the 30th and the 1st of October, 30th of September, 1st of October are going to be in situ seminars just with partners. I'm giving you the date. I don't know if it's going to be possible. I don't know what we're going to do and what we're going to speak about, and if we're going to have artists or not, or just one day of conference. What we did with the team is just we settled the dates, and we booked a place so that at least if we can do something, we will be able to do it. But we haven't thought yet about the content, just so you know. And last but not least, we think about changing our tool, which is Zoom, because we have more and more people telling us that it's not safe. And we have many people who are also, like at the European Commission, they are forbidden to use Zoom because of problems of security, let's say. So we are testing things with the team, but it's not that easy to have such a tool that is working so well. So we're working on it. I don't know when we're going to have a solution, but still. I think I have two. So Pierre wanted to add something. Pierre.
Yes, thank you very much. Really pleased to hear you. It was it's great because everybody is very strong and a lot of ideas. And so two things. The first, we will probably have the results of Uncommon Space sooner than what we thought. So maybe in 1 month, beginning of June, but not so late. So that's important to know as soon as possible. And the second thing is we discussed with Nadia and to organize some Zoom meeting, maybe not Zoom, but some video conferences with artists to share with you and artists, to share their projects about the crisis, how to readapt their project and so on, and to invade new ideas. So we have not yet decided, but the idea was to open kind of every week to have a meeting, which you're not supposed to be at all the meetings. It's not the same for the artists, so that will be open, but maybe we will organize 3 meetings on the next weeks to share with artists, especially with artists, their idea about it.
Any comments, questions? Marie, can we hear you? You're just the only one we haven't heard about.
No, but you know, for me, I work for mobility, so I am in the e-mobility. No, just to say that I will send also to Nadia and Elizabeth and Rachel, I will send, we are doing, I mean, we are still, of course, continuing like to update our website, and we have some interesting example of new type of call, either remote residency or mobility grant, which are transformed into other type of project funding, or also like commission for online digital type of format. So we have a few examples, of course, which can both be useful for the artists that you are working with, but also as a source of information, or information and inspiration maybe for some of the format, even though there are already many ideas which have been shared. So I will send that, and if it can be useful, I mean, feel free to use it and be inspired by it. And maybe also it can be connected to what Pierre was saying, like maybe for some artists, they can be also like some idea of mentoring. I mean, we are doing a lot of them at the moment, in fact, like to cope with what is happening and trying also like to plan for whatever future we may have after. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that was a meeting. So we keep the same time, same hour next week, so that we can discuss a bit more about artistic projects, and we will probably by then come back to you on the technical answers, and we keep in contact. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Salut.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Go.
Wow, merci. Thank you.
Nadia. Je voulais juste rester 5 minutes avec Pierre si c'est possible. C'est possible
bien sûr.
ou pas?
Ouais.
Sur les CNAREP, hein, rien à voir avec In situ.
Attends, si je vous laisse, parce qu'en fait, je vais. Donc, je vous annonce que je ne vais pas écouter, mais moi, si je m'en vais, vous êtes.
Rien de confidentiel.
Je sors, mais c'est juste que si je pars, ça s'annule.
D'accord.
Ah, attendez, je vais juste arrêter l'enregistrement.
Ah oui.
Ouais, parce que là, tu vas voir tout le mal qu'on va dire des autres.